Good morning, everyone. It is Patricia Tomlinson, your host of The Dialogue. Today, I am really excited. We are moving forward in our series dedicated to Mental Health and Depression Awareness Month. Today, as you guys know, we are interviewing different women that have had the opportunity to actually go through depression but actually came out on the other side. So today we have a very important guest with us. I actually just met her and she was so beautifully amazing and extending the opportunity to allow me to interview her. So you're going to get an opportunity to talk to her, or I'll get an opportunity to talk to her. You'll get an opportunity to listen to her story in just a few moments. If you guys have not been tuned in, I just want to let you know that I am doing this series because I myself have been a survivor of depression on many different instances. And I have met as well as talked to many different people that have battled with depression, not just where they diagnosed themselves. Some people are also clinically depressed and diagnosed by doctors that have taken the necessary coping skills and measures necessary to come out of the darkness and turn the lights on. Okay. So if you have not been tuned in, you are more than welcome to go to Anchor, Spotify, Google, and check out the interviews that we have been doing. Okay. So this is another one of our interviews. And now today we have with us another guest. So I'm going to go ahead and allow her to introduce herself and you guys just come along on the ride with us. So, hello, how are you?
Hey, Patricia. I'm good. Hi, all of our listeners. My name is Porsche Steele, and I am very happy to be here.
And we thank you so much. I know that this is not necessarily a conversation or a topic that is comfortable to everyone all the time. So for you to take the opportunity as well as the time to talk to us, we feel really blessed to have your presence on the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I mean, I know we just met, but we've had some deep conversations already.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
I'm excited to get into it.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah, we did.
we did. I mean, it was like, you guys, I'm not going to tell everything that went on in this conversation, but when I tell you God was so in it, it was just question and answer. And she's all the way in a completely different city and state from me. I've never met her face to face. We never sat down and had coffee or tea. We literally met through Facebook Messenger. I don't know if I asked her a question or something. We went through the DMs and just started talking. And it was just like, I think we talked for probably like an hour or so, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. We feel like, was it almost 2 hours? It was about 2 hours.
I think it was because it was like the questions, and you guys, I want to tell you how good God is because it was actually the revelation that I needed at the time. And so I want to talk to you guys like, don't be off standish when it comes to interacting and meeting people from different places, because she literally had the answer that I needed located all the way in the place that she was. I just had to put myself out there, open myself up to talk, and she had some wonderful insight. And that's what led me to ask her, like, hey, I would love for you to come on the podcast and share some of that insight on a different topic. And here we are today. So,
Truly.
so tell me a little bit about yourself. You did give us your name. What exactly is it that you do? What are you into? I want to make our listeners aware of the type of woman that you are, the capacity that you hold.
Yes. Well, I'm the CEO of Mystique Growth Publishing Services. So I help coaches transform their messaging and combine it with their story to publish an impactful book that generates more income and influence. I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, PA, but I moved to Nigeria in 2019 to be with my now husband. So we just living it up over here.
Okay.
I got a lot going on, but I where I've come from and where I am now and to where I'm going, it's been a journey, and I'm still in the middle of it. I'm still in the middle of that journey. Still have a long way to go. But God has been good, and what I've been able to achieve in such a short time. We'll talk about why it's been such a short time, but it's been truly a blessing, honestly.
And I can definitely see that just from, I mean, we talked through Messenger, but I'm not even going to lie. Literally, as I'm talking to you, I can just feel those cool chills that most people get when they feel like it's cold, but it's actually like the Holy Spirit moving on them. You have such of a beautiful spirit, and it's very calming. Very calming. And I love to have people on the show like that because it's an authenticity to where they know they've been through something, but they have the joy of the Lord on the other side. So I think, yeah, I think this is going to be amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that, you guys. We'll make sure to leave all her business and social media um, links and stuff like that towards the end of the podcast, because who knows, maybe someone will be inspired to tell their story after we do the session today, so we want to make sure that we link you, connect you to the people that can help you bring that to pass. Okay, so today we are talking about depression. You guys know that, like I said, I've been doing a series. I've interviewed about 5 or 6 women, including myself, in regards to depression. So, Miss Steele, could you please tell us, when you think about the word depression, what comes to mind? How did this affect you? And how have you been able to navigate through depression?
Yeah. Depression was a tricky one for me because I didn't know that I had it. Mm-hmm. Even now, like, I've never been officially diagnosed. I've never seen anyone about it. I've never talked to anyone about it. But, it's become more mainstream to talk publicly about that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so through the mainstream definitions and conversations, I've been able to determine that, I think I was depressed for quite a bit of time. Mm. So my journey through that. So I actually had an amazing childhood. Oh my God, I loved life as a kid. I did amazing in school. But when I turned 16, things got a little crazy. So I was being sexually abused by somebody that I was close to, somebody in my household. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in a household where, we weren't really allowed to go out. We were strongly discouraged to go out, strongly discouraged. And I use that word intentionally, strongly discouraged, because it's not like, we're told that, oh, yeah, you can do whatever you want. All you have to do is ask. All you have to do is let me know. But truth be told, if you did, there would be repercussions.
Okay.
So we were strongly discouraged not to go out, not to date, not to have social media. I wasn't allowed to go to college. I won a scholarship and was coerced into giving away my scholarship money to this individual. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so I spent from 16 to 26, so 10 years, this is my late teens, early adulthood, trapped in that situation with the emotional and sexual abuse, and I didn't know how to deal with it. There was no way out. So I thought, because it was very much like a cult, like family.
Yes.
So I thought there was no way out. This is all I know, Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody on the outside. We're not really allowed to talk to relatives without relaying the conversation back to the individual.
Yes.
So everything was monitored. It was very oppressive. Mm-hmm. So in that time, I really was thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I'm going to get through. This is my life, right? Like, this is never going to end. And when you're in it, they make sure to tell you that you want this forever, right? This is something that you're going to be part of forever. And you say yes because you don't know what else to say, because you're afraid, because you don't know anything else. And as a teen, I really didn't know anything else. We had moved from Pittsburgh to California, so I didn't know anybody there. We didn't have any family there. We left my hometown. So I really was, by myself. If I just left, where would I go? Who would I see? How would I survive? Mm-hmm. I had nothing. I knew nothing. But I really started to get heavy into prayer, because we weren't going to church or anything like that. But the power of God was always in me, even as a child. Mm-hmm. So around 17, 18, prayer became my thing. Like, my ability to pray had increased so much in such a short amount of time. And so here I was able to just sit and shut out the world in deep deeply meditate to the point where I would get answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that, and the answer that I kept hearing was the word endure. So I just had to continue to endure. And I was 18 when I first started doing it. Like, endure? How? Like,
my goodness.
Literally, I'm asking God. I'm like, how, bro? How am I supposed to do this?
My.
So I did. I endured, and in that time, little stuff started happening. Little stuff. So when the depression really hit, and I was spiraling out of control, it was to the point where I would look at myself in the mirror, and I could just see I was emaciated. Like, I looked like I was malnourished. Now, everybody in the house was relatively healthy, but I was losing weight. I was developing dark circles around my eyes. My skin, I normally have, like, chocolate skin. It was pale. Like, I was just looking ashy every day for no reason.
Wow.
It was getting bad. And God just kept telling me to endure. And so I decided I needed to do something. Now, as a kid, I grew up learning German because, Pittsburgh is, if you go to school in Pittsburgh, it's probably a German magnet school. Mm-hmm. So we learn German. So I needed to do something with my time in my life. I graduated high school, so I wasn't doing anything. So I hopped online to relearn German. And in that time, I came across a guy. And that guy and I, we spoke and we dated for 5 years. In secret. Nobody knew. I was in a house with 8 other people. Nobody knew.
Wow.
So we dated for 5 years. And in that time, I learned how to edit. I was editing for authors who were unpublished. So just writers who were posting their stories. I was editing for them. All in secret.
Wow.
On this beat up laptop that we had. And, I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't doing anything. So I was just earning money, and it was just sitting in a PayPal account, not doing anything. Yet I was falling in love. So my sister, who I found out was going through the same thing I was going through, which is crazy. We're all living in the same house, and we don't know what's happening with each other. But I found out later that she was going through the same thing. And she told me, Portia, I'm either going to kill myself or we have to leave. And I was like, say less. No, so what I'm doing, I fasted for 4 days, for 3 or 4 days. And God gave me my answer. So I had about several $1,000s just sitting in my PayPal account. And we left in the middle of the night. So I was 26. I'm 29 now, so this was only 3 years ago.
Yes.
So we packed our things. We packed our things. We left in the middle of the night. 3 months later, I hopped on a plane to see the guy that I had been dating online, and he happened to be Nigerian. So I flew to Nigeria.
Wow.
Saw him. The day that I arrived, he proposed to me. We got married 3 months later, and so here I am. We're still together. We've been married 3 years. Our 3rd anniversary is this December. And my sister, she left. She moved to Indiana. She's in her final year of getting her bachelor's degree in game art design. So, we left. We had to leave. And that action, that step of actually taking control back in my life is what pulled me out of that depression. Not to mention that I was falling in love, which I think had a big, that was a huge help. Being in love pulled me from that darkness. But,
of course. Yeah. I mean, so I'm not going to cry, but stories like this definitely touch me. I am so sorry that you had to go through that for as long as you did. But I'm the type of person, I can see the beauty in tragedy. And you have a beautiful ending, which is not necessarily an ending. This is like a new beginning for you. Because as you came out, sometimes you go through transition. And when you go through that transition, just when you come out of the situation, most people don't understand. You still have to go through a transition where you feel safe and you're okay. And for some reason, it's so many things that are resonating with me as I'm talking to you. Like, most people don't know this, but I paint. And so it was one time I painted a picture, and it was a woman that just was floating in the air. She just looked at lifeless, but it was these hearts that were like balloons. And I don't know if you ever heard of that saying, or it's a song. It says, "Love lifted me when nothing else could help. Love lifted me." And that's what your story reminds me of. Just like how you said how you felt lifeless. Not that you felt lifeless, but when you looked in yourself in the mirror, you looked emaciated, your eyes, your weight, you looked, ash tone. You know, it was for your benefit that you left. It gave you new life. And I commend you, because some people's darkness is in different levels, but for you to leave, most people may not have done it. Like you said, you were sheltered, so you didn't know what was outside. You didn't know how you were going to survive. But I also hear that you got your confirmation and uplifting from God, that inevitably He confirmed for you to leave. So this is a faith-based podcast. So I do have a lot of different people on, but I think that out of every story of a person I've talked to, their faith, their relationship with God, their relationship with Jesus Christ has been the catalyst for them to evolve out of darkness.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be, right? Like, me, I wasn't allowed to do anything. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. So it's not like I knew the outside world. So I knew me and my sister, we were stepping into the unknown. If we didn't have faith, that would have been impossible. Without faith, we wouldn't have even taken that step, because there's such a huge unknown. We had no credit, no bank account, no nothing. Like, even the system didn't know. When I tried to get my first bank account, they were like, "Oh, we can't, because we tried looking you up and you have no credit. You're non-existent. You're not even a U.S. citizen." Like, technically I am. I got my ID and stuff. But like, as far as the economy is concerned, you don't exist. So it's like having all of this lack of information. You don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what to do. So then how do you then decide that I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway? I'm still going to leave. Well, it's just God. You have to have faith, because without faith, what are you doing? You just have logic. And for me, that's always been the biggest thing, the difference between logic and faith. So when you lack faith, you use logic. So you use your brain to figure out what's going to happen and how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that. But you can not use logic and use faith instead, especially in situations where you lack the knowledge. You literally don't know. You're ignorant about what's going to happen or what's going to come or what you're going to do. You can't use logic in that sense. If you don't have faith and you don't have logic, you're not going to do anything. There's nothing you can do. You'll just sit there. You're just there. So when you lack logic, you must use faith in order to take a step.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I mean, when I hear you say that, it's like, without faith, it's impossible to please Him. And the most beautiful part about it is that I'm going to use a story from the Bible. When you think about Adam and Eve and how she ate from the tree, and it gave her knowledge that she wasn't supposed to have, because they were covered and they were sheltered until they got the knowledge that they were not. And so when you talk about logic, it can send you into all types of realms and dimensions of ways of thinking that we should not be thinking. And it can be destructive. If you rely on yourself, the knowledge of a human, yourself, instead of God. If you would have relied on yourself, fear might have stepped in. And I know, because I've had experience with the cult as well. They make you feel guilty if you don't want what they want. You're isolated. So inevitably you're by yourself. So at that time you had God, you were able to break down those barriers of probably being institutionalized for years. So it's a beautiful thing, through that prayer, God was preparing your mind to not take on the narrative of what another person said about you that would ultimately have kept you in bondage. And that's powerful. to walk through all those years and all that time. And God is just saying, endure, endure. And so that does answer the question. One of my questions was going to be, do you believe that you can be saved and still battle with depression? Because a lot of people don't understand that just because you're saved and you're battling with depression, a lot of people go through that. A lot of people endure the darkness while they're trying to walk towards the light.
Well, yeah, I think. See, I'm a different type of person though, so I wouldn't classify myself as a typical Christian.
Yes.
Even though my husband is Catholic, but I'm a bit different in my own belief.
Okay.
But I think it's important for people to understand that whether you believe in Jesus Christ or you follow Jesus Christ or you believe in God, it doesn't matter. You're still human. We still have emotions the same way. It's still a chemical balance in the brain. It's still, you're still a human being. We all still function the same way, with or without faith. So I often get into heated discussions with individuals who try to say that, oh, well, I shouldn't be depressed because I have the Lord Jesus Christ at my back. That doesn't mean it. I mean, it's there, yes. And that's the power that's going to help me. But I'm still a human being who feels emotion, who feels pain, who can still have PTSD, who can still have flashbacks and triggers.
Yes.
That stuff is still there with or without God.
Yes.
So and I personally feel like faith was it was the anchor for me. Having faith, believing in God, and believing in my ability to pray, and knowing that God was going to have my back, that's an anchor. But God doesn't remove your ability to feel. And you said something earlier that's so profound, and I kind of just want to highlight, is that even after you've left the situation that you were in, there is still a very long transition period where you're still going to be battling the depression. Like for me, yeah, I left 3 years ago, but only like maybe a year ago did I stop having nightmares.
Yeah.
Like after I left, I was having nightmares every single night. And people would say, oh, but you're not there. You're not there anymore. So it's okay. You're praying every day, aren't you? Yes, I am. But I still have a human brain. And trauma imprints itself on your brain. No, I'm not a neurosurgeon. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical degree. But I do understand to an extent that when traumatic events happen, they imprint themselves on your brain and it sticks in your memory.
Yes,
prayer is not going to remove that. I should say my faith is not going to remove that from happening. So it takes time to work through it, and you use faith as your anchor. So as you're going through that, you're going to feel the pain. You're going to feel that, and it's going to be there. But just thank God that you have faith to hold you down as you're passing through it.
Yes. And I mean, the one prophet in the Bible that had just did all the miracles and stuff like that, he went to the brook and he was depressed. He wanted God to take his life. And that was a suicidal thought. So it is very true. If you look in the Bible, there are so many people, like even David. David was running from Saul. That post-traumatic stress and the trauma after the encounter is still there. And this is why it is important to set yourself up to hear stories and testimonies and actually also apply practical coping skills in order to navigate through it. That is the purpose of these episodes that we're doing, to give you practical tools to implement in your life to come out of darkness, which is depression. Everybody uses something different. Your tool was prayer. I also want to ask you, in that time that you were there, did you ever journal? I know you said it, that you were helping other people. Did you ever journal or write about anything?
I did, and I think that was one of my saving graces. So I had like 3 or 4 diaries, thick ones too, in the last 4 years that I was there. And what I found, and kind of goes into what I do in my business. But what I found was the moment that you start to write your story, you start to remove the emotional attachment to it that causes you to feel some type of way, that causes you to feel your depression or your trauma. I was able to write my story and identify who I had been being. I know that sounds crazy, but just follow me. So as I wrote my story, I could objectively look at my life and say, here are all the things that happened to me. Now, while I was living that, oh my gosh, did I feel like I was going to die, felt like I was either going to commit homicide or suicide, didn't know which one. This was just a mess. This is what I was feeling like as I was living it. But when I wrote it and I read it back to myself, I could then identify those moments objectively. I'm not living in it. I kind of stepped away from the frame and looked at the picture for what it was. And at that point, and let me tell you, even though I was journaling while I was in it, it wasn't until after, like years later, when I read what I wrote, did it start to have the effect on me. You have to write it and then read it. But yeah, when I went back and I read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not who I want to be. This is not the Porsche Steele that I want to be. Because before I was a submissive daughter, but to my siblings I was hardened and emotionless and passive. I don't want to be that. But it wasn't until I read my writing that I recognized that that's who I was. And even when I entered my marriage, I was thinking, oh man, I gotta be this Nigerian wife. I gotta learn Igbo culture. I gotta do all this. I gotta do that. These are the expectations that I thought was being placed on me, not by my husband, but just like I thought it was there by the general culture. The nation was putting this on me as an American woman stepping into Nigeria, marrying a Nigerian man. So all these expectations defined my identity. So by the time I came here, I didn't know what my favorite food was. I didn't have a favorite color. I didn't really know what I liked or didn't like, because my whole life I just spent living up to somebody else's expectations of who I should and shouldn't be. So that's who I became. But after I wrote it all down and I read it, I was like, ooh, who is this? Who is this woman? It's not who I want to be. So writing it down allowed me to rebuild my identity. So the woman that I am now is not who I was 3 years ago. And I know for some people, they'll say, oh, that's only 3 years. But in 3 years, I've done so much for myself. So I wrote my story. Then I read it. Then I shared it. Then I called my dad, who I hadn't spoken to since I left, and was like, I want you to know that I recognize everything that was going down and it was not okay. I faced all of that. And most people, they don't, right? They just leave the situation and try to block it off. But you can't. You have to address it and become very present to it. So I did. I became present to my story. I became present to who I've been being. And I became present to my father, who was the epicenter of all of this.
Wow.
And once I became present to that, I shed tears. I literally cried on my husband's shoulders for maybe like an hour after I got off the phone with my dad. Then I started writing. Then after I got done writing and I read it back, I was like, I'm a new woman. I'm a new woman now. And you can just think that was like 3 hours. That took 3 hours to have that transformation. But those were the steps that I took to transform. And after that moment, literally that day, the day that I called my dad was the night that the nightmare stopped. I stopped having nightmares once I called him. And then it just got better and better as I was writing. Then I started sharing. Then I was going on stages to speak about it and different shows to speak about it. And I was helping coaches write their story. So I really, really stepped into my authenticity of the situation and who I was being and who I was pretending to be. And being present to that truth gave me the ability to live the truth that I actually want to live, to create my identity for myself and not for anybody else. And so, no, I'm not depressed, but I know people in my situation, even my sister, they've not had that transformation because they refuse to do that. It's really hard to stand in front of that thing and say, this is what's happened.
Absolutely.
And it's okay.
Absolutely.
And I think I don't want this to be I don't want him to do that to my daughter, and I don't really trust men, and I'm afraid that maybe my husband is cheating on me. That's the story of what happened because that's what I made it mean. So even though, yes, this thing did happen to me, I chose to make it mean that I can't trust men or I can't trust anybody around my daughter. I made that choice. I created the lens through which I see life. But when you write your story and you write your life story, almost like you're writing a memoir, write your memoir. I don't care how old you are. Write what happened to you in your life. And then you'll be able to read it and detach the story of what happened from what actually happened. Because what happened to me was I was sexually abused. That's what happened. Now, it doesn't weigh me down anymore. It has no effect on me anymore. It's just something that happened. It doesn't mean that I can't trust men. It doesn't mean that all fathers might, touch their daughters or molest their daughters. It doesn't mean that. It's just something that happened to me. It happens often. I realize that is a fact. Statistically speaking, it happens too often. But I still get to decide what that means for me in my life. And I could only make that decision after I read my life. So always, no matter what you do in your life, no matter where you go, no matter the type of job you have, no matter the type of career you want to get into, always write your story because it gives you the ability to look at your life for what actually happened.
Wow.
Now there's that. Now, for people who are still going through depression, I really think it is bad advice to give someone advice. Okay?
Wow.
So it is, because the problem is with depression, it's not one thing. We try to look at depression as if it's linear, but it's not. It comes in different phases. It shows up in different areas of your life. It does different things to you. It has different levels and depths. It's so abstract that if you try to give somebody who's going through depression advice, you never know whether it's the wrong advice or the right one. You just don't know what that information is going to do for them. It could be completely useless, and it could be everything to them. So I try to avoid giving people who are going through that advice. But what I will say is find somebody who can listen to you. It may or may not be a therapist, because I've never been to therapy, but my sister has, because I didn't need that. But find somebody who can listen to you and not give advice. Don't go to somebody who's going to advise you. And I think that's when you seek out therapists, you have to interview a therapist. I think that's a huge mistake that people who are going through hard times make. They don't interview the therapist. They just think, oh, you're a professional, let's talk. No. A good therapist is somebody who doesn't talk, somebody who listens, because what you end up doing is talking yourself into realization. Just by you're just talking, and you talk yourself into a better place, not listening to other people. You need to talk. So I would say find somebody who's a good listener, not a good advisor.
And if you guys weren't able to listen at the beginning segment, these are her recommendations for someone going through depression. And so it's so ironic that you just said this, because this actually just happened to me. I went and visited a person, and they were going through something very, very difficult. And it was my objective. Okay, I don't want to talk to her about it. If she's comfortable with talking about it, that's fine. But I just wanted to listen. And she was able to come to reason herself. But I do notice that a lot of times when you do try to insert your viewpoint or perspective into a person's life or situation, a lot of times they end up either doing the opposite, or they don't want it at all. Or by the time they come out of it, they actually are offended by how you handled them. Because sometimes a person that's going through depression, they just need tender, loving care, compassion, understanding. And all the conversation can come off. Sometimes it's like self-righteous, like you know what that person needs. And sometimes they don't even know what they need. So it also reminds you like Job in the Bible. I'm sorry, I love the Bible. So when his friends came and he lost everything and they was trying to tell him like you sinned, and this was just for chapter after chapter after chapter, they just was letting him have it. And he's like, it was not what anybody thought. You know what I mean? The whole perspective of that situation was not what they thought. It wasn't because he sinned, because it tells you in Job 1 he was a righteous man and that he prayed and covered his family. So that didn't have anything to do with it. It's your own personal bias that can overshadow a lot of times what God is really trying to do through a person in a low place. For instance, God told you to endure. It wasn't that he didn't know what you were going through. He wanted you to endure. Then he gave you a business, a platform, and a voice to empower other people. So sometimes it's not for us to come out of it instantaneously. I mean, how is it that you were, sexually abused for all these years? I'm talking to you. You said you've never gone for treatment. You seem absolutely in your right mind, so coherent and in present. Not that you're not still going through anything, but ultimately, God knows what each individual needs. Some may do therapy. Some may do walks. Some may journal. Some may not talk at all. It just depends on that individual person. And so I thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your faith, but also doing what was not able to be done for you at the time. Like when you were going through, you had a story, but at the time, it wasn't that it was able to be broadcasted because of, it might have ended up getting worse, if anything would have came out at that time. So you had to hold it for a time and a season until you came out, processed it, and now that's what you're doing for other people. So you're appreciated. I want to apologize for what happened to you, but I can look on the other side and say, it says it was good that I was afflicted, because you're such of a strong woman to be able to openly address it, and not only just only address it, tell who did it. Because a lot of times people say, oh, I've been touched or molested, but they can't say who did it. So
I mean, that's the difficult part, isn't
it? Yes, it is. It is. It is. It is. It is. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm a survivor of sexual trauma. I've gotten on Facebook and addressed it in a group, actually gave details about what happened, because some women needed to know you don't have to be captive to the details. I was almost sex trafficked by an aunt when I went to visit her in Florida. I also went through years of homelessness where I was just passed around from person to person. I call it like human trafficking. When they get you in the house, they say they're going to help you, and then they don't. You end up just cooking and cleaning, doing everything they want you to do. So with all of that, it is powerful to hear how God helped someone overcome that. Not that there's still not things that we're grappling with, but we are still taking the necessary steps to heal, as well as help another person, which is the mantra for this podcast: healing souls one conversation at a time. Okay? Her and I are having a conversation. If this is something that you've been impacted by, you're involved in it, you can get the tools, the strategy, the comfort that you need in order to bring you out into the light. Okay? So, I want to absolutely extend your business information. If you could just leave us some of your business links, or how we can get in touch with you if someone is inspired and they're looking forward to either work with you for the opportunity to tell their story, where can they reach you at?
Yeah. Well, you can email me at Porsche, PORSCHE, at MystiqueRosePublishing.com. Mystique spelled like my middle name, so there is a C there, not like the word. MystiqueRosePublishing.com. Or you can send me a direct text message at 901-205-9804.
Okay. And you're also on Facebook under that profile name. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm on Facebook, Instagram. You can Google search my name. You can Facebook search me. You can do whatever. You can Facebook search Mystique Rose Publishing LLC. So
Okay. And then just
rolling
for the
with it.
middle name, because for spelling purposes, we understand that COVID did a lot to people's brains. So can you just spell the middle name for us, please?
Yes, Mystiquue. First
Okay.
one to speak.
So you guys hear it. We have a wonderful lady with a beautiful spirit that was able to come on and give us some gems, you guys. She's not just talking about this. This is her own personal experience that she has went through the darkness. She has come out. She has overcome, and she's taking the necessary steps and using the tools that she's giving you guys today to make sure that she remains in the light. Okay, you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and end this segment, but I also have a surprise for you guys. So, just through the conversations of dealing with so many women, I am extending an opportunity. I'm going to be hosting a class October 26, 2022 at 6:30, called Lights On Depression Awareness Workshop. You're able to purchase your tickets on Eventbrite. I'm actually going to go ahead and upload the link today. So, you are just not without tools that you need in order to make sure that you come out of the darkness and walk into the light. Okay, so stay tuned. You'll see that on my Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I know you guys, they got me on the TikTok, okay? But we will keep you posted. Make sure if you need inspiration or anything that you reach out to her, especially for your business inquiries, for books. Even if you just, maybe she'll just do like a feature or something and help you, not for free, because it's a business, okay? But maybe you just need help getting your story out on paper and to walk and live in your authenticity, okay? Maybe that's something that she can help you with, just even journaling skills or how to do it. Some people just don't know how to start. Okay. Don't look for anything free. Okay, you guys, I'm not soliciting her business for free. Okay. She, if this is something she decides to do, she'll work with you. If not, then you just might have to write your story. Okay. So we thank you so much, Portia, for tuning in with us. You are such of a light in this world of darkness. We appreciate every word that you said. And you guys,
Thank you.
you are so welcome. You are so welcome. And you guys stay tuned. We'll be back with more content and more interviews on the dialogue. You guys have a great day.